What we are trying to do at Kaneko, try to give open space for your mind means just give you freedom to think about anything and then see how it goes.
Kaneko was founded on the belief that creativity is essential to human life, not just the arts.
Kaneko is a great concept, and this is a great space. And the University of Nebraska is very excited about the future of our partnership.
I have a very firm conviction that there is something distinctive about human intelligence that sets us apart from every other species on Earth.
Culture, by definition, is the blanket of moral and ethical values that we place around the individual human being to keep at bay the barbaric heart that history teaches us lies just beneath the surface of every one of us. It is culture that allows us to make sense out of sensation, to find meaning and order in a universe that may have none. It is culture that allows us to respond to what Abraham Lincoln said when he said, "Always seek the better angels of your nature."
I don't believe that the strictures that are being visited on schools by No Child Left Behind were intended in the legislation. It's a very serious piece of work put together by serious-minded people with the best interest of the country at heart. You could tell that. The trouble is, it's based on a misconception. And the misconception is this. The misconception at the heart of this education reform process is that sorting out education is very similar to bailing out the auto industry. All we have to do is kind of cut the mess, get rid of the excess, focus on the core issues, make the whole thing more streamlined and more efficient, and get it all standardized. And then it'll be fine. And the problem at the heart of this is that motor cars are indifferent to the processes by which they are produced. And human beings are not. The heart of education is personal engagement.
So to me, I have a little bit of suspicion about creative this and then create that. I don't think creative energy is anything special. I really believe everybody has it. Somehow, as people grow, some people start losing that part of it. Some people just learn how to keep it or maybe make it stronger.
My experience is that very many people go through the whole of their education and never discover what their true natural talents are. How are the arts doing in schools in Nebraska? This isn't, to me, just about the arts, but I'm saying throughout the country there's evidence that the arts are being cut back in schools.
In Nebraska, the curriculum does not mandate or require arts instruction for graduation from high school. That is set by the local districts.
I would encourage you not to stop having this conversation.
Discovering our own personal gifts is part of a lifelong learning process, but we need opportunities for this to happen. Renowned glass artist, Kaneko teaching artist, and Omaha resident Thurman Statham offered just such an opportunity to these students.
They like drawing on paper, and I changed it quite a lot. See, in fact, I wanted to change it so much, I made a trick door when they open at the hospital when they open it, later with the reverse. So this studio, my
Talk to me. Tell me about your house.
I love writing about these big social issues in the U.S. So Jackie was talking about how I'd written about hunger and about different issues here. And usually what I do to try to get going on something is I find a big issue and then I go out and I interview a bunch of experts on that issue. So hunger, drug addiction, immigration. It had a universal theme, and I look for that a lot when I write, things that anyone can understand. Greed, injustice. In this case, it was a kid who's willing to go through a hostile world to be with his mom.
How long did it take you to do research for Enrique's journey? I mean, because it sounds like you went really in depth, and then also about how long would you say it takes you to research most of your stories?
This, as a newspaper series, took me 2 years, and the book with that took almost 5 years. So I did months of research before I ever went to find Enrique. I hope someday in the future you'll send me some of your stories to take a look at. I think we all have really powerful stories to tell, and I'm sure your experiences here in Omaha, you have some amazing stories to tell, so right on.
You know, I really think that this issue of women's rights around the world has really reached a tipping point for a couple of reasons. And one is that there's just an overwhelming amount of research that shows you get more bang for the buck if you invest in women.
There's a lot of money going to the problem right now, but the problem's not being solved.
It sounds banal to say it, but that helping people is always a lot harder than it looks. There are some indications that some things do make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the scientists that I know, the most interesting scientists that I know, are all very much, they're not rigid people as people imagine, you know, scientists and mathematicians to be. The opposite. They're highly creative people with just a curiosity for everything. You know, a lot of art people are only interested in art. Most scientists I know are interested in everything. So they're, you know, and art and science and almost any process of discovery shares certain qualities. Where you go through this period of exploring what you know through reason, you get to the edge of what you don't know, and there in that edge, between the known and the unknown, some jump happens. You can call that jump of creativity, you can call it whatever you call it, but the structure is very similar.
What I want to discuss is some of the findings of my laboratory and of laboratories around the world on what we know about music and the brain. Music was one of the very first questions taken up by the early experimental psychologists in the late 1800s. One of the things we've found is that music engages regions throughout the brain. In fact, it engages more regions of the brain than almost anything else that we know of. The promise of music for psychological health is that it can enrich our lives, certainly, and make us happier and increase mood just, you know, outside of a clinical setting. It helps connect us to our past, it connects us to others, it connects us to our true selves.
The waves are breaking on the wall. The Queen of Roses spreads her arms to fly, she falls.
You know, the Greeks used to say that one measure of the sophistication of a culture was by what percentage of time the average person spent engaged with art.
I love that.
And we think of the Greeks as a very scientific and artistic culture, and a political one. They had these three, they had balanced art with scientific inquiry and with social responsibility, which is what politics was for them, making the world a better place. For people that don't have facility with art, that don't have musicianship or painting ability or poetic ability, what advice can you offer for how to incorporate art into everyday life?
But I didn't have facility or ability for it. I had instinct for it and passion. And art and music have been so marginalized in school systems that it's so great to see a place like Kaneko and see these kind of programs happening around the country.
Nothing left to inhale. I've sucked everything from you. Body quivers and my mind is frail.
Okay, so you're a classic case of a young person with great bursts of inspiration whose skill set is still being refined.
And I'm still learning.
And so am I. What I would do is to refine your skill set because you got some big stuff coming through you.
And I ain't never going back again. But then the phone rings through tangled...
Because we all kind of have our own sort of coded way of saying something.
In my mind, when I write a song, there is a perfect listener. And that perfect listener is the highest form of myself.
Do you ever just let it out and let it go without even knowing what's coming?
I don't contain my passion or my impulse or my longing or all of those things that are intensity. I give them structure.
So just what is open space for your mind? It is an experiment. There are risks, but taking risks isn't anything new for Jun Kaneko.
Have to have a sense of adventure, otherwise I think artists would have a hard time to go any place.
I'm looking forward to sharing this opportunity with so many of you and from different walks of our community.
When I heard that this was the topic today, I started thinking about that and realized that, you know, I've been doing what I do for 35 years, and I collaborated from the beginning in making records. So I realized that real collaboration requires a kind of maturity of development that you can let go of your certitude.
I think to me what's fascinating is something that I've seen in my research and in my readings, which is this paradoxical nature of creativity and collaboration. You need to bring the passion, but you also have to have the maturity and the ability to compromise and know when to step back, which is very difficult when you're passionate about something.
We have a natural tendency to want to control our lives, or organizations to kind of control their world, and many organizations and individuals try to gain autonomy.
Well, the idea is if we all come together, we'll help each other and we can grow together. This is exactly what started my organization. Next thing you know, it's no longer just your idea. You know, even though it started with you, you are just as important as every other person.
You're a visionary, which is something that's even beyond collaboration. And in my experience, people want to collaborate with visionaries.
I think there's an individual's creative life, an organization's creative life. I think there's also a creative life of a city.
Omaha is thick with visionaries, especially right now.
So I think part of what we need to do, in addition to support art in the school, is redefine what creativity is for most people.
The task, the hard work, is to stay awake and not tend towards cynicism or inertia or isolation. We're sitting here talking about how we collaborate, and I'm happy to be part of that conversation. Thank you. Thanks for coming out.